Greetings, gamers. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to the introductory series of World of Darkness 5th Edition. And today we go over the dice. World of Darkness 5th Edition games run off a D10 system, so all you really need is your 10-sided dice. At minimum, what you're going to need is 10 dice of one color and 5 of another. This should handle most situations when it comes to what dice you will need for standard dice and what dice you might need for strange situations depending on what you're playing. Using the standard dice is quite simple. 1 through 5 equals a failure, 6 through 9 is a success, and a 10 is a chance at a critical. The way criticals work in the 5th edition system is if you have 2, they equal double successes. So if you roll a set of dice and 2 10s pop up, that's 4 successes. Now that keeps building with each set of successes you have. So if you roll 3, that's still only 4 plus 1. But if you roll 4, that's 8. So you can see where it's valuable to get more and more successes in your roll. The concept of a botch doesn't really pop up when you're talking about standard dice, until you end up having events where situational dice come into play. A vampire's hunger, a hunter's desperation, and a werewolf's rage. The difficulty of a situation is chosen by a storyteller, and they range from routine to nearly impossible checks. This chart shows you exactly how things work out. So let's go ahead and build a scenario, shall we? The scene is set with you standing outside of a law office where you need to break in and steal some files to help with an ongoing investigation. The storyteller tells you that the lock barring access to the building is just a moderate threat, so difficulty of 3. So you take your dexterity and your larceny and you roll those. If you get 3 successes, the door opens. Not that big of a deal, and that's the basics of how these dice work. If you're not happy with the outcome of your roll, one thing that you can do is push your character to greater heights of success by spending a willpower. By spending a willpower, you can re-roll any 3 failed standard dice in your outcome. When you're talking about situational dice, you cannot, unfortunately, re-roll hunger, desperation, or rage dice for their respective groups. Complications start to rise when you're not just playing a standard mortal. In Vampire the Masquerade, you have to compete with hunger, and unfortunately, that involves situational dice. Your hunger goes, in most situations, from a 1 to a 5. Every hunger point that you have on your character means that you take 1 of your standard dice away and replace it with a hunger dice, which can drastically change situations you might find yourself in. Now, rolling a hunger dice, a 2 to a 5 is still a failure. A 6 to a 9 is still a success. But if you roll a 1, there's a chance that you have caught yourself in what's known as a bestial failure. A failed roll in which 1 or more hunger dice comes up as 1 is a bestial failure. Either the character failed because their beast manifested inappropriately or excessively, or the character's failure angered their beast into manifesting inappropriately or excessively. A bestial failure is when you roll a 1 on a hunger dice and your hunger dice pops up with a 1 and you haven't met the minimum requirements for passing the test, either against a combatant or a static challenge set by your storyteller. The consequences for a bestial failure could be that the character starts to act out a compulsion as the blood starts to subtly dictate their actions. The character loses a dot of advantage. A character suffers 1 or more points of aggravated health damage, or if a suitable consequence can't be found judging on the situation, the vampire actually gains more hunger in response. This could lead to a frenzy check if the vampire is already at a hunger of 5. Rolling a 10 on a hunger dice, being part of a critical, leads to what's known as a messy critical. A critical win in which one or more 10s appears on a hunger die is a messy critical. The character succeeds as in a regular critical, but like an animal would, not being capable of foresight or self-control. The beast scored a critical. Perhaps not you. So you actually get to complete what you're trying to do, but you might not like the outcome that comes along with that 10. In these situations, a character could gain one or more stains from their monstrous actions. The character could breach the masquerade, as they visibly demonstrate supernatural strength or speed, or leave gaping bite wounds in a body. A character could lose a dot of an advantage, just like in a bestial failure, as they may have accidentally crippled or killed a retainer, or a similar effect to some background. If nothing seems to fit the circumstances given the messy critical, the character may start to suffer from a compulsion, feeling overindulgent in what they'd accomplished with the help from their beast. In Hunter the Reckoning, the situational dice don't represent anything like hunger. They represent desperation, how dangerous a situation has happened, and therefore, in my opinion, they run like adrenaline. This is the situation where a mother is able to lift up a car to free a pinned child or something like that. A 10 on one of these works the exact same way as the other system, where they have a chance of adding to their criticals and getting more and more successes. However, a 1 on the situation dice for a hunter can cause you to gain more despair or to overreach. Basically, what ends up happening is you can cause more damage and trauma to your group based on the situation. Werewolf dice acts a little bit different as well. You go back to the same system that Vampire had, where you're replacing instead of just adding to. But where 10s still continue to add a chance for more and more criticals, a 1 or a 2 on the rage dice equals a brutal result. For every point of rage, replace a regular dice with a rage dice in your pool. Rage dice have a similar face to regular 10-sided dice, except that 1 and 2 are considered brutal dice results. 2 or more brutal results cause a brutal outcome, usually causing the test to fail, unless the goal was to cause harm or damage. Brutal dice results cannot be re-rolled by spending willpower. And that's it. It's that simple. The only thing to really go over with the dice is that you might see specialty dice from time to time. 5th edition World of Darkness games have their own dice sets that seem to be a little bit different, but in truth they're not. The only thing that they've done is added symbols to the dice. And I can tell you, a blank is just 1 to 5. An onk is 6 to 9, and an onk with stars is a critical. The hunger dice for Vampire still have the same blank faces for 0. They have the onk for success. They have an onk with fangs for criticals, for 10s. And they have the Nada skull for bestial failures, or 1s. Hunters have blank sides for failures, a fire for a success, and a full-out blaze for a 10. The desperation dice also have the blank, the fire, a blaze for a 10, and an exclamation point for an overreach or a despair roll. Werewolf has blanks for failures, again. They have the werewolf scratch mark for a success, a scratch mark with stars for a critical, and the rage dice that they have are red with the same symbols, but adding werewolf teeth for a brutal outcome. Going online, you can find various customizable dice with clan symbols or sect symbols. It really doesn't matter. They're all just D10s. Don't let those confuse you. And over my time storytelling for 5th edition, I have noticed where they have them, you don't need to use them. Really needs to be put out there. I tend to bring dice for my players to use when they hire me on as a storyteller if we're working in person. There's no reason to feel like you have to buy these special dice. They're just there for immersion. They're there to specialize if you want to have specific dice for your characters. And that's fine. I myself have full sets of all of them. but they're not necessary. You can just use any d10s. The only thing that you need to remember is you should have at least 10 of one and 5 of a different color. I hope this video was helpful for those of you just getting into World of Darkness games. The dice can seem a little daunting, but each system has their own type of dice that run on very similar mechanics. The biggest difference really is the fact that humans, hunters, tend to add dice instead of replacing them, giving them a little bit more of an edge up due to their adrenaline rush in a dangerous situation. Please make sure to like this video if it helped you, to leave whatever questions you have about dice in the comments below, and to share if you think that somebody in the gaming community might be able to benefit from this video. In our next videos, we're going to be going over character creation in full, building a vampire, a hunter, and a werewolf respectively. And remember, it's our World of Darkness. Good evening.